And ladies and gentlemen, request you to kindly remain seated. We are about to start off with our next session, Mobile and Social Revolution Changing Marketing Strategies, which is brought to you by Lava. Ladies and gentlemen, we start off with this next session, and I will take this privilege to introduce the speakers and the chairperson before you. Mr. Arijit Basu, Managing Director and CEO, SBI Life Insurance. May I request you, sir, to kindly come onto the dais and take your seat. And as Mr. Basu comes to his seat, I will take this privilege to introduce him. Sri Arijit Basu took over as MD and CEO, SBI Life Insurance Company Limited from 1st August 2014. A graduate in economics and a Master of Arts in History, Sri Basu started his career with State Bank of India in 1983 as a probationary officer. He has to his credit over 3 decades of experience in the banking sector. A certified associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers, Sri Basu has held several key positions in various circles of State Bank of India, including the bank's office at Tokyo. He has also served as general manager at the bank's Mumbai Circle and the Mid-Corporate Group at Ahmedabad, as well as the Financial Institutions Group International Banking at Corporate Center, Mumbai. His last assignment was Chief General Manager of the Delhi Circle. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Our next speaker for this session is Mr. A.L. Jagannath, Director Marketing, VMware India and SARC. May I request you to take your seat on the dais? In his current role, Mr. Jagannath leads the marketing efforts for VMware in India and the SARC region. He is responsible for all communication and demand generation activities. He focuses on creating mind share for all VMware technologies and solutions for the software-defined enterprise. Before joining VMware, Mr. Jagannath was the Director, Trade Marketing at LinkedIn India. His main focus there was to create monetization opportunities for the professional networking platform. Prior to that, he has held leadership positions at Sun Microsystems, Tech Mahindra, and Reliance Infocomm. Mr. Jagannath has about 20 years of well-rounded marketing experience with exposure to a wide range of market categories and segments. A warm welcome to you, sir. Our next speaker for this session is Mr. Sudarshan Rajagopalan, Country Marketing Director, Dell India. May I request you to take your seat on the dais, sir? Mr. Sudarshan is an international marketing professional with experience in strategy, planning, brand, product management, P&L responsibilities, and pricing management. He has the ability to combine executive vision and strategic direction with operational dealing. He has been at the top talent at Dell for over 13 years running, identified as the Marketing Global Key Talent. He has been selected to be a part of the prestigious Dell Global President's Council in 2016-17 as the only marketing nominee. He has managed marketing, sales, brand, product, creative, research, pricing across strategy and execution. He has a proven track record of hiring and retaining talent. And he has been voted as the CMO of the year 2015 and 16 by customers, partners, and vendors, which is recognized by VAR India. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Our next speaker for this session is Mr. Prasenjit Roy, Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, NetMagic and NTT-Com. May I request you to take a seat on the dais, sir? Mr. Prasenjit has around 2.5 decades of corporate experience on the business side, spanning across several multinationals in India and abroad on the IT technology services side. An accomplished and dynamic strategic marketing, strategy, M&A, and business professional, he is the evangelist of integrated strategic marketing covering a wide spectrum of industry sectors, including financials, telecom, manufacturing, information technology, and other verticals. His relevant sales experience in different geographies helps to churn out huge efficacy marketing and strategy plans across multi-locations, multi-state, and global environments. He has been invited by NASSCOM to be a mentor to their 10,000 startup programs launched across India and by other VCs or funding agencies. He is a visiting faculty member but to the CEO School of Management, and occasionally takes full-day marketing workshops with multiple corporates. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And our chairperson for this very interesting session is Mr. Atanu Ghosh, who is a mentor, angel investor, digital marketing and analytics coach, and founder and CEO, Blue Beak Solutions, LLP, and Salt and Soap. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and I request you to take your seat on the dais. Mr. Atanu Ghosh is the promoter, founder, and CEO of Blue Beak Solutions that runs Salt and Soap, a leading online supermarket in India, and Medinook, an online health consultation portal. Mr. Atanu is also an angel investor and serves on the board of directors of various technology startups. Before his entrepreneurial stint, Mr. Atanu was a director with IBM, and prior to that, a principal with PwC. With IBM and PwC, Mr. Atanu has worked extensively in India, USA, UK, Southeast Asia, and China. Working for IBM and PwC, Mr. Atanu has consulted leading Fortune 100 companies on their SAP and ERP deployment. Mr. Atanu also headed IBM's SAP practice for Bangalore and China. Mr. Atanu is also an international speaker and adjunct visiting faculty with leading business schools including IIM Calcutta, XLRI Jamshedpur, XIM Bhubaneswar, Praxis Business School, Calcutta Media Institute, and UPH Jakarta in areas of digital marketing, analytics, e-commerce, and ERP. A very warm welcome to you, sir, and I will hand over the session to you.
On? Okay. Thank you, and thank you, ABP, for inviting all of us. Good evening to all of you. It has been a long day, so I hope we'll be able to keep your attention, and since it's on mobile and social, I can't request you to put off your mobile. Okay, so keep your mobile on. When I got the list of esteemed speakers in the panel, and I saw Mr. Basu's name, I was reminded the first time when I did my insurance, that was with life insurance. Those days, life insurance, I think, was the only insuring agency way back in 1991. And I joined as a graduate engineer trainee in Bharat Heavy Electricals. And then they had a custom that there used to be an agent who used to connect to the batch every year, and that's how they used to sell the insurance. So I'm sure later on in this discussion we'll hear from Mr. Basu that how that kind of direct marketing has changed in the banking and insurance sector over these 25 years, and I'm sure there's a lot of revolution that has happened. Now, with context to mobile and social, this entire area of digital disruption in marketing started not exactly with mobile, but in the desktop era. And at that point of time, when the traditional media, in absence of better words, which is the print, the television, and the radio, they were the dominant channels of communicating with the customers. At that time, the digital revolution essentially did 4 things. Okay. First one was it helped to target and reach the audience better. Okay. So you could, for example, find out who is interested in taking a flight from Kolkata to Bangalore and probably target that particular flight to that particular person. Okay. What it also did was it allowed programmatic buying and selling of media. So traditionally, media space was always bought in bulk. Okay, and we all know when you buy things in bulk in the supply chain, there's always redundancies that gets created. Okay, so this allowed programmatic real-time buying of media space and online media space. Okay, the third thing that happened was you could measure the outcome. Okay, and the outcome could have been measured in terms of actual sales. Okay, and it could also be in terms of various other indicators or intent to purchase behavior. Okay, and the fourth thing was this measurement was real time. That means you are not talking about doing a consumer survey and getting the results 6 months down the line. You can actually find out, for example, if it's a retail store, and if that retail store has an online front, you can actually figure out that at what, when the consumer is going to the retail store, what the consumer is intending to do, which products he is looking at, which products he is not looking at. Okay. As opposed to a physical retail store, probably will be able to measure the consumer behavior at the point of purchase. Okay. Now, of course, there is technology available where you can even understand consumer behavior before that. So that was the digital revolution that happened. Now, what exactly changed in the mobile age? Now, few things changed in the mobile age. First thing was that consumers started interacting with product and services on micro moments. Let me take an example of media to just illustrate this fact. In a traditional world, we are always used to reading newspaper in the morning, right, with a cup of tea. Okay, and if you look at the entire production system of news, that has been designed in a way to deliver newspaper in the morning, because that's when people read newspaper. But once the newspaper is available, or news is available rather, on the mobile platform, your interaction is not only throughout the day, it is not necessarily in the morning, but also in spurts. That means you don't spend half an hour in the morning to read the entire newspaper and go to office. You probably will quickly scan through the headlines, then you sit in the car, probably will go through the stock market news. Probably in the afternoon when you are free, you will go through some entertainment news. In the evening, we'll probably read the sports news. And all these things are happening in spurts. So you need to engage with consumers, that means marketers need to engage with consumers in these micro moments. So there is no large chunk of time where consumers are engaging. So these are the micro moments where consumer is engaging, and you need to engage with the consumers at that point of time. The second thing that is important is you need to go through the entire consumer experience. So initially, marketing was all about reach. How do you reach the consumers or customers, and how to acquire. That was traditionally what marketing was mostly about. But today, it is not just about reach and acquisition. You have to traverse a consumer's journey through the entire cycle of probably discovery, to research, to consumption, to experience. So entire discovery to experience cycle, you have to be with the consumer. And this is where the mobile and the social platforms, because mobile devices are with people all the time, as opposed to a desktop or a laptop, where it's not there with people all the time. Okay? So that's one significant change that happened in the mobile age. The other thing that happened was, how do you interpret the data? Because you are interacting, or you have the ability to interact with the consumer at all these micro moments. Okay, again, going back probably through insurance, but today we are talking about, when we are booking the ticket, we don't mind paying a couple of bucks for an extra insurance for the flight. So it's now moving to a micro insurance. So we are talking about insurance for a specific instance. So my intent to purchase might be different at different points of time. When I'm in this room, comfortable, I don't think of insurance. But when I'm traveling, probably that's the time when I think there's a risk, and hence I go for insurance. So am I able to connect with my consumer at that particular micro moment? Because if I do that, then my probability of converting that customer is higher. Okay? So people or marketers are connecting with consumers at these micro moments, and you have the data. You have the data to support that the way you are going to engage. So, and this data is available real time. Okay. So this is how the landscape has changed from the digital marketing during the desktop period or laptop period to today when we are talking about connecting 24/7. And remember today when most of us, the first thing when we do after waking up is to look at our mobile, and the last thing that we do before going to sleep is to look at our mobile. Okay, so that's how consumers are connected. So that's the perspective, and with that I'll invite Prasenjit to give a broader perspective of how digital marketing in the mobile era is evolving. Okay, and then we'll take it forward. Yeah. Yeah.
It's on. So play this. Okay. Then it's gone off. Okay. Okay. Hi, good evening. Before I start, a couple of things. One is, let me give you a brief about which company I represent and what space I come from. So I come from the B2B space. So Infocomm is a Japanese ICT major, third largest telecom player moving into ICT. So we are basically into IT infra space. Okay, so when I say IT infra, it covers your data centers, co-location, managed hosting, cloud, all variants of cloud, disaster recovery, networks, the entire IT infra space. So we are world's largest data center player and second largest IP network player globally. So that's the space we come from. And the second thing, I'm glad during the discussion, Atanu pointed out, and because I was a bit skeptical, because I know one of my colleagues that we work together, Sudarshan and Jaggi from the space. So most of them, Suri has some B2C, but most of them are B2B players. So, Mr. Basu coming in, Mr. Roy coming in, the B2C angle comes in, and that gives you a complete perspective. So what I'm going to do in the next 15, 20 minutes, take you through the journey, okay, which has been well encapsulated by Mr. Ghosh, but I just want to take you the different elements, which is very critical in today's age. And the third thing, he was talking about marketing, etc. I've been in marketing for the last 2.5 decades, and I can say one thing with certainty, that's one of the functions that has changed most dramatically in the last 5 years. Okay, I don't think any other function has changed so much as marketing has. So that's the context. Let me get on with the slides. So what has changed, in today's age, and how was it different? The entire interaction with consumers or customers, okay, as Mr. Ghosh said, has changed. It's no longer communication. It's no longer one-way traffic. Okay, it's a conversation day in and day out you're doing. Everything in today's world is experiential. Okay, customers want to feel it. Okay, they want to have what you're talking about. It's no longer old drab brochures or collaterals that you throw at him. He's not interested any longer. We are in a fiercely VUCA environment. So I hope you know what VUCA is, VUCA. Okay, so some of them you may not be familiar. So it stands for volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. Okay, so today's world is a VUCA ambience. Consumers of today, they want immediate response. Okay, they experience the brand to leverage their data. Okay, as he was talking about, Mr. Ghosh talking about how data intensive today's world is. Consumers are hungry and they want data. They are very well informed. Consumers, in fact, are one step ahead of you. Okay, they have done their homework. They know the domain space. They know the competition space. So today's world, consumers are very well educated. Okay, so you have to take that with a pinch of salt when you interact with any consumers. So let's look at the retail point of view, how consumer scenario has changed. Earlier, it was a single channel, how it used to operate. Today's is omni-channel. You must have heard the name omni-channel. Okay, so today's age where he's surrounded, okay, is no longer a multi-channel, cross-channel environment. It's an omni-channel environment that we're all working in. So that's a major difference, a shift, tectonic shift that has happened. So what happens in a multi-channel and omni-channel concept? So if the consumer is at a center point, he's at the focal point, all along this is his different experience zones, be it the social side, be it the news, be it interactive, everything is surrounding him. So he has amenities to all different channels to keep himself updated and abreast. Okay, so that's what the consumers of today are. As Mr. Ghosh said, they want a seamless, personalized, omni-channel experience. That's the demand of today's consumers, and that spreads across B2C and B2B also, okay? So they are more demanding, they want more customized stuff, they are not interested if you throw something, a dish out to them which is very generic. You have to cook something which is for them, and that's a basic demand of today's consumers. The digital landscape you talked about, okay, it's phenomenally changing, okay? So in the world's population of 6 billion plus, 30% of them are on the internet, okay? In a single day, in a Facebook, 4 billion items are being shared, okay? Video in a day, 4 billion videos are being watched online, okay? Staggering statistics. I'll tell you something more, and that will add on. In fact, I was just going through. On a per second basis, okay? In a per second basis, 1 lakh tweets are being done. On a per second basis, 2 million Google searches are being done as of today, okay? Every second, 48 hours of video are being uploaded on YouTube. Staggering stats, you know, we know that, you know, social has exploded, but this is something, you know, eyes will pop out. 471 websites are being created every second. More than 3 lakhs of USD of online sales are happening every second. So, you know, huge numbers we're talking about when you talk about the social space and the digital space that we are in. So, if you look at the entire ecosystem, okay, and deliver the on-brand experience, so it's a culmination of the experiences that he gets, the media, the different touch points, and the connections. All together, combined, make the entire ecosystem. And that's what today's consumers are looking at. It's a very highly data-driven relationship. Mr. Ghosh pointed out. I won't go into details because there's a shortage of time, but it's a very high data intensive. You know, consumers are hungry for data, and they're playing around with data. Millennials, okay, I'm sure every one of you know the term millennials, and they are our biggest point. India, land of 1.25 billion, 64% of the population are actually millennials. They are less than 35 years of age. Okay, 53% of Indian population as of today is around 25 or below. So this is the target segment that we are grappling with. And in order to address them, because they are your key segment, marketeers have to, you know, pull some tricks out of their hat. No longer old, conventional, archaic marketing is going to work. Let's look at a video. I'll talk about it later.
52% of marketing professionals worldwide name video as the type of content with the best ROI. 65% of video viewers watch more than 3/4 of a video. 33% of tablet owners watch 1 hour of video per day on their device. B2B and B2C marketers worldwide name video as a top 3 most effective social media marketing tactic. Using the word video in email subject lines boosts open rates by 19%, increases click-through rates by 65%, reduces unsubscribes by 26%. 74% of all internet traffic in 2017 will be video. %93 of marketers use video for online marketing, sales, or communication.
4 billion videos are watched every day. 4 billion. Look at the stats. Marketers of today know that they cannot go by the old conventional way of communication. If you make a collateral, chances of people going through it are hardly anything. If you make a case study that's unprinted, people hardly go through it. What today's world wants is a video clipping, customers talking about it. Even for the conventional, say, for example, we're in the cloud business, okay? So how do you get into the website and how do you buy cloud online? How do you do provision of it? Everything, people don't want a write-up, they don't want a collateral, they don't want white paper. You will need to make videos, okay? Maybe a screenshot, but people are interested in having videos, okay? They get more familiarized with that. So that's a sea change that's happening. And as they say, you know, 2017, I think everything will be in the video age. No longer people are going to read online print and script there. So digital strategy, okay? These are the very few basic elements I covered. And what are the things any marketer needs to look at? One obviously is the audience. Who is the audience? What's the interest? What's the conversations going out? And most importantly, who are the influencers? Okay, who will influence others who are sitting on the fence to come and talk to you or be swayed by you? So finding and tapping the influencer segment is very critical. Second, obviously, content is the king. So do you have an engaging matter? Is it relevance? It is contextual in this today's age where we talk about. What are the different channels and platforms we are talking about? And how do you have the consumption pattern based on that? Measurement, very, very key factor. How do you measure what you've done? Every single penny in marketeers has to be measured. So are you getting the ROMI out of it? Okay? And the analysis based on the tools that you have put in. And lastly is the implementation part of it. Okay? The innovation programs that you run to implement something which is out of the world, or something that will really sway everyone off their feet. So these are the 5 key elements. Paucity of time, I won't go through each of them, but these are the things every marketer needs to look at in the digital strategy. The other thing that happens in the digital strategy is obviously from the business point of view. The SEO, the ACM, how do you engage customers? How do you track them? What are the different tools that the forensic tools that you have when they come to the website and fill up a form, or if they don't fill up a form, even how do you do a forensic analysis and find out from the IP address? So the lead generation, that's the digital marketing part, because obviously, end of the day, marketeers are also interested in the business part of you. It's not only the brand that needs to find its way, it's also the business that needs to come into way. There's Google's DoubleClick, which is gaining prominence, and which a lot of the corporates are trying to take a cognizance on play. It's a bit expensive, but it gives you a lot of resources and amenities for you to play with. Remarketing, it's one of the very key things that's happening in today's business. When someone comes to you and lands at your website or at any of your engagement level, how you keep on following it up and how you keep on remarketing him. It could be partnering through competition, it could be partnering to business keyword remarketing. So remarketing is one of the very potent tools in today's digital age marketers employ. 37% of retail sales will be mobile. Mr. Ghosh talked about a lot in the mobile. Okay, so when I talk about mobile, it's not only mobile per se, your cell phone. It includes your tablets, it includes PDS, everything that we do. Some of the key elements, like for example, as basic as your website. When you set up, you make a website which is fantastically well content-wise, everything, but is it responsive? Because in today's CIO, they are not going to go to the website. They do everything from the mobile. Okay. Creation of mobile apps, okay? Like for example, if you come to any of those big events, etc., long time before the event starts off, you get everything in apps, okay? Is the marketing team creating apps? Is the apps are relevant to your product line of business? Then the campaigns, the videos on particular the mobiles. We do a lot of WhatsApp mobile, WhatsApp campaigns. So everything is part of mobility in today's world, okay? And how strongly are you embedded in the mobile space? We have one more video on the social media. Thanks. So there was one important message. I hope you picked it up. They said, close to 80% of people get influenced if your friends or community circles talk about any particular buying decisions. So you get influenced based on what you hear or what people talk about in the conversations in Facebook. And as I said before, 4 billion items are shared in a Facebook per day. So you see the power, the strength of Facebook communication and conversations, and which is impacting business. Social media marketing, some ROIs, as I said, very, very key is the reach point of view, the engagement point of view, and how many people you interacted. And obviously content, as I said, is very, very key importance out there. And lastly is the conversation, conversion. Is the conversion happening? Are you getting the desired bang for the buck that you put in, okay? So these are some of the key elements that one needs to look in when you do SMM. Lastly, do's and don'ts, social media, people who are not being very much initiated into it. This is some of the things which I think are very basic, but one needs to keep this in mind if one is traversing in this space or one is new into this particular space and opening up his presence in social media. Don't expect miracles, okay? It doesn't happen overnight. You have to persist with it. It's an ongoing process. The dividends are immense, okay? You really can quadruple and have a 10x of what you have invested in, but you have to stick to the job. I won't go through each of the points. Maybe I can share it if you want it later on because of paucity of time. But this is just a basic stuff that I thought we'll put it through. And lastly, as Mr. Darwin has said, it's how you adapt to the change. And change is something which is constant. The obsolescence in technology, the obsolescence in today's world is something that's hitting us. Disruption is one of the key things. In fact, one of the tagline of Infocomm is also transform and transcend, okay? So it's in sync with what Infocomm is today. So, disruption is something that's ever constant, ever changing, and we have to live with it. That's it, and it would have been a great audience, and some of the discussions I had in the morning were very pertinent also. So we'll be happy to take questions when some of my colleagues finish. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Roy, for very insightful presentation. And you must have picked up some of the data points that he showed. And I wanted to add one interesting data point which I just read this morning, that out of the 7 billion population in the world, around 5.8 billion have access to mobile phones and 4.5 billion or something have access to toilets. Okay, so more people have access to mobile phones than they have access to toilets. So that's the level of penetration that we are talking about. The other thing I think Mr. Roy pointed out during the presentation is the role of technology. He used, I think, some technical terms, SEO and social media marketing and all those stuff. So the important thing is that there is a congruence of leadership capabilities. When you are building up a digital capability of an organization and transforming an organization to a digital organization, there has to be a congruence between the leadership capabilities of the organization and the digital or the technology capabilities of the organization. And that's what will transform the organization into a really digital organization. Okay, so if you have time, there's a very good video on YouTube called "From Adman to Mathman," the transitioning of an adman to a marketing professional, which is data driven, which is which is metrics driven, and stuff like that. So I'll recommend people to go through that. It's an excellent video. So with that, I'll invite Mr. Basu. We are really keen to understand how, I am personally keen to understand that how the transformation of insurance marketing has happened from the old age of agents to today's digital age.
Thank you. I think before I come to insurance, I'll also speak a little bit about the financial sector, because when you talk of mobile and social impacting marketing, I think the banks today are talking about banks having transformed themselves to an IT company which also offers financial services. You have a huge IT infrastructure where you put in some financial services and you are directed towards that. And I think globally, all financial services companies, including insurance companies, at some point in time will converge. You know, we heard data from you and Mr. Roy, you know, staggering figures. And there is no reason why, you know, it should not impact each and every financial service that is actually offered. Coming to the insurance sector, what has happened in India is that, like you, my first product was from LIC, and the LIC agent came and sold it to us. The agency channel continues to retain its relevance even today. And it's not just in India, even in the US, you know, which is probably the most developed market. And I had the opportunity of going to a conference of an insurance research organization, which has just completed 100 years. And they have very similar problems, you know. The agents are supposed to be the advisors who explain the details of the financial product to the consumer, final consumer. And the consumer is expected to understand the various features and, you know, the ramifications of buying that product and then going. But like we have in India, the agency channel itself has to run on an model which is sustainable. That is, the agent has to be rewarded for that. And for various reasons, that sustainability for some agents become problematic. So which is why, unlike when you bought your policy or when I bought my policy, the attrition rate in the agency channel is much more. And especially after the coming of the private sector players, including we also function as a private sector player, although 75% owned by State Bank. So we have an agency channel. The new evolution is that we also have a bank assurance channel. You know, like for instance, our company is promoted by SBI. Our joint venture partner also is a French insurance company, which is 100% owned by BNP, which is again a bank. However, it would not be very well known that till 2 years back, our individual agents used to contribute the maximum to our premium. That has of course changed. That used to happen because possibly State Bank was not doing as much work in selling insurance as it could have. Things have changed over the last few years, and therefore now the bank assurance channel is bigger. Although for our company, the agency channel is growing very well. We are growing at 20–30%. However, that is not always true for the other companies. And that is where the discussion point of today comes in. You know, what then is the role of mobile in marketing, and you know, where does social media come in? So in very broad terms, the digital mobile as a part of digital, I think each and every company has understood that. There are 23 life insurance companies, there are 28 general insurance companies. I really don't know why there are so many, but the fact remains that there are so many. And all of them have very strong digital channels. They offer products digitally. However, at least in the life insurance space, as of now, insurance continues to be a product which is not demanded by the consumer. There the disconnect starts. Even today, it is a product which has to be explained and reached out to the consumer. So therefore, say for example, in our company, we invest a lot of resources. We have possibly the best, the pure online sales, where the consumer himself decides what he can buy. You know, we have a channel, we have continued to develop it. It is available on mobile, we are making it user-friendly. And yet, you know, the alternate channel other than agency and bank would roughly be 4–5% for us. But then each and every company cannot afford not to have that channel. Because as you said, because of the data that was given, it is such a rapidly changing world, and even in India, you know, the 33% of the mobile phones which are available. There is a theory that, you know, we have 800 million mobile phones, but not all of them are smartphones. But 33% of mobile phones, even in India, are smartphones. On top of that, I understand, I don't know whether that's an Indian figure or a global figure, more time is spent on using the internet through mobile. 2.5 to 3 hours you spend on the mobile rather than, you know, watching TV or doing something else. I really don't know how people can do that if they have work to do, how they manage to spend 3 hours on the mobile Obviously, they are not doing their work. Anyway, that's on a lighter note, but the fact remains that that is how the world has changed. So therefore, I don't think there is any company, and I speak for the industry, everyone is positioned. Suddenly a time will come when the process of purchase and sale of insurance will possibly change. It could happen sooner rather than later. The other thing on the social media piece is that social media is, I think, it's a reality. It's there with all of us. It's, we have gone into debates on what social media is doing. The most talked about word of 2016 or 2015, I'm not sure, was post-truth, you know. So social media is again something which has to be managed and handled, you know. So everyone is on Facebook, Twitter, even public sector banks like SBI, you would be hearing, SBI is advertising that also now, that they are not just the most visited among banks, they are the most visited among any organization in the world. You know, I think SBI's rank currently is number 5, the number of hits that all the social media space gets. And similarly in our company also we've traversed quite a bit of journey in the last few years. But then what do we actually aim to do with social media? As has been very well explained by you and Mr. Roy, ultimately it is the consumer and the customer who's at the center of whatever we want to do. All companies have to get two things connected. One is, there is, I mean, it's a no-brainer that the customer is at the center. And then what is it that you want to do as a company? Say for an insurance company, everyone will have his own motto, but very similar, like we say our motto is to be the most trusted and preferred life insurer. So we want to be the most trusted and preferred life insurer for each and every consumer who's there in the country. So therefore, we keep the consumer right at the center of the piece. In that piece, how do we use social media, whether it's a Twitter, whether it's a Facebook, anything, and how do we juxtapose our mobile, the offerings that we can make through mobile and reach out to him and evolve or you know, cater to his changing taste. I think finally, to just sum up, what will actually happen is that we will not go jump in one day. Most of us in the life insurance industry, what we are doing is a process of assisted sale, which is now completely on what we call a tablet or a device. So we have one, I think all the companies have one, where you don't, it's a paperless system. So in SBI Life, we sell roughly 20% of our products through this assisted sale. You don't need to bring any document. Your KYC is done through Aadhaar with either Iris or through an OTP or something like that. Your documents can be uploaded. The photograph can be taken there. And it's a process by which if you don't need any medical requirement, theoretically your policy should be able to be issued in one day. So what happens there is the customer has an advisor, because as of now, as I explained, insurance is still not evolved to that stage where it is readily understood, and there is a risk also that if a customer buys a product without understanding, it's not desirable unless it's a very simple product. So the journey that is now happening is that it's a movement from pure manual sales done by an agent to a sales which is still done by an agent, who is now using a lot of tools including need analysis calculators, what is the need of the customer, keeping the customer's requirements at the center to find out a solution. Once this process sets in place, and with the rapid evolution of technology, you know, every day there is something new coming up, I'm sure that maybe in the next few years things will change. We really don't know when it will happen, but if there is any company in the financial sector or any other sector which feels that they have time or they can afford to build a digital environment only when you know, things change, I think they will have a very rude shock and can just get blown away. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Basu, for an excellent insight on the insurance sector. I'm reminded, I think I read somewhere about car insurance. Now, I don't know whether it's available in India, but in the West, you can have a device in the car and that will monitor your driving performance, and based on that, your premium will be decided.
Yeah, it's actually already there, so many of the latest version of cars, they already have this device. It's like, it will come in India also, like we did not have the safety lock. Now this will come, so it gets to track what you do, it takes your breathalyzer test, how you drive, what are your driving habits, and virtually real time your premium can go up or down. And in fact, regulations in India will also change. In health also you can actually do the same thing. You can have health trackers, which many of us have an Apple Watch and things like that. That can be transformed into a device which actually monitors the health of a person and can give a benefit to a person who is healthy and charge probably higher premiums. These are things which have not as yet come to India, but I'm sure the industry as well as the regulator will be open to looking at it when these new ideas do come into India. Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Basu. So I'll invite Mr. Jagannath to take us through his point of view on mobile and social.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you. So, Prasenjit did a very good job in wowing all you guys with a lot of numbers. I think, needless to say, they're in the midst of a big tsunami at this point in time of mobile and social waves coming at us. As marketers that we are, I think it's a question of whether you want to ride the wave or you want to get washed away. So, I've been a marketer for long enough and I've seen transition between, as Mr. Ghosh said, the digital era of emails and the basic stuff that we did, and to the point that, as Prasenjit said, in the last 5 years, I think we've seen transformation which is absolutely mind-blowing. So, what is happening? Let's understand what's happening. So, I come from B2B background. We always talk about the B2B customer is a little different. B2C is a little different, B2B is different. But finally, I mean, if you see, it's the same human being, and the same human being consumes media, consumes content, consumes or interacts with multiple screens, or be it phones or iPads or desktops or whatever, pretty much like anybody else. So he's pretty much bombarded with a lot of information. So content is like coming at his own convenience. He's consuming from peers, he's consuming from whoever. At the same time, the social bit, obviously, there are a lot of, so when you want to really talk about tech products, people don't really now, I mean, while in the earlier times, people used to go to websites or tech websites to really consume and evaluate stuff. But today, people talk to each other, there are peer exchanges, there are multiple forums which, which help you validate and give you those references and that validation saying that, okay, this is a good thing, a bad thing. So these are things which we need to be aware of. We cannot ignore them. We cannot say that I will do my way of doing advertising or communications. I need to be part of that whole revolution. I need to be seated inside those forums and conversations. If I don't, so the reality is, with or without me being there, my brand is being spoken about somewhere. Somebody's speaking about brand somewhere, but do I even know of it? Maybe not. Can I make an attempt to know of it? Maybe I should. Is there a way to do it? There are multiple ways to do it. So I need to be part of these conversations. Now, having said that, I'd like to give you a small example. Raki, is the video there? Raki, is the video? Okay. So, wait. So, I'll give you an example of a very interesting case that happened in 2009. This is about United Airlines. Okay, so a little nice, interesting story. Let me give you the background as to what happened. So, there was a small-time band, a musician called Mr. Dave Carroll, was flying from Halifax to Omaha via Chicago's O'Hare Airport, and a small band. I mean, they're like the guys who play in pubs and whatever. So he checked in his guitar. Okay, he checks in his guitar into United Airlines, and then what happens? Just before they're transiting at the Chicago airport, somebody looks from the window and sees their guitars being, manhandled on the tarmac. So basically, thrown by the ground handlers. What happened? So Mr. Dave Carroll broke his guitar. He had a $3,500 guitar made by a company called Taylor, not of consequence, but that guitar broke. what do you do typically? So you go and approach United Airlines, and they said, okay, not mine, not my responsibility, somebody else, somebody else. So basically what he did, he didn't reply, I mean, he didn't really address the issue in 24 hours. They said, you missed the 24-hour deadline, all sorts of things happened. So this went on for 9 months, and frustrated Mr. Dave Carroll went pillar to post, no resolution, nobody owned the thing. So being a musician, this is what he did. So he actually made a song. Can you play that song?
I flew United Airlines on my way to Nebraska. The plane departed Halifax, connecting in Chicago's O'Hare. While on the ground, a passenger said from the seat behind me, my God, they're throwing guitars out there. The band and I exchanged a look, best described as terror, at the action on the tarmac, and knowing whose projectiles these would be. So before I left Chicago, I alerted 3 employees who showed complete indifference towards me. United, United, you broke my Taylor guitar. United, United, some big help you are. You broke it, you should fix it. You're liable, just admit it. I should have flown with someone else or gone by car. 'Cause United breaks guitars.
Okay. So this is a song called United Breaks Guitars, okay? So this was put on YouTube. So he just made a small video and put it on YouTube. And on day 1, he had 150,000 views. By day 3, by I think he put it on the 6th, and by 9th is 500,000 views. And by mid-August, 5 million views. Just look at the impact that this kind of a thing that can have when social, when things go viral, and how brands, which are seemingly large and seemingly untouchable, can have impact. So what happened to United? So United then tried to make amends. So they said, okay, no, we will fix it up. We'll give you $1,200 worth of vouchers and free upgrades also. He said, not happening. So he released two songs. I mean, it's okay. So you go to YouTube, says the sequel to this, United Breaks Guitars 2 and 3, and he talks about his experiences. And they were phenomenal hits. So today, as we speak, there are 15 million views of this. This is a case study by Harvard Business School. There is a case study and multiple, there are some, this itself is a case study by itself. So what happened to United? So United, which could have just addressed the problem by fixing the guitar, maybe less than, say, $300 or $400, whatever, lost their share value, went down, I think, some 30%, $180 million lower in market cap, serious PR shit hitting the roof, face saving, which is, things have gone completely awry. So this is what is happening. So my point here is that we think that we are pretty much cocooned by all the great stuff that we do in terms of communicating customers and whatever else, but it is this brand experiences, so like what he said, micro moments. These micro moments can actually create havoc. And large brands, small brands, brands can be built, brands can be broken, brands can just vanish in no time if you don't really are part of this whole thing. So this is a phenomenal case study, and it goes on to say, how, in fact, the Taylor guitar, okay, the Taylor guitars, the guy who's made the guitar, they leveraged this. So they gave Dave Carroll a guitar, and they said, we give you free guitars, and they went on to do a YouTube video, and they actually capitalized on this. So it's a phenomenal case as to how a particular instance has called ripple effects on a particular brand, and how other guys have tried to capitalize, and phenomenal story. So I seriously encourage you to really do this small search called United Breaks Guitars, and view it. So my point is, irrespective, be it a B2C brand, B2B brand, he's in Dell, I'm in VMware, we do data center stuff, our customers are pretty much very well defined, we know who they are not like infinite number of people across wherever they are, pretty much we know who they are. Irrespective, I think people can have an impact, and social media is something that you don't have control. It is about a question of how do you harness, it is a question of how do you be part of that, and how do you control these kind of disasters that if at all they can happen. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Jagannath. In fact, Jagannath touched upon a very important point of how today consumers complain or show their concern. In the olden days, you used to write an email, previous to that letters, but now people don't write emails. They'll just put it up in the social media or put it up in anywhere. Okay, and you don't know where they're going to pick it up. So there's a whole area of social media listening, how your brand is being talked about, whether there's a positive sentiment or there's a negative sentiment around the brand. That is going on there. So with that, I'll invite Sudarshan Rajagopalan to give the final views on the social and mobile. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I neither have a good video to show, nor do I have a slide full of stats to impress you, so I'm going to try and make it as interesting as possible. I think I'm going to make a few assertions, so you are all aware of why this medium of mobile and social is becoming that interesting for marketeers. Do you know what's the average attention span of humans today? Average attention span of humans, any guesses? So, what's that? That's a lot. 8 seconds. 8 seconds. Do you know which animal has the lowest attention span? Goldfish. And you know what goldfish attention span is? 7 seconds. So we're just 1 second better than the worst on the planet. And that's the problem. The problem is for a marketeer to make his brand really resonate and capture the mindshare of a customer, he's just got 8 seconds. If in 8 seconds you don't stick, you're out. Whatever medium you choose doesn't really matter. And that's the crux of the problem. And why mobile and social makes a lot of sense is because it's always on. So you can actually multiply that 8 seconds now. Because the device is always available, you could now look at it in pockets of 8 seconds to be able to capture the mind share, which a traditional medium would never allow you to do because it's not cost efficient. So that's the first assertion. The second assertion is to what Mr. Basu said. It's about customer at the heart of this transformation. It's not really about technology, it's not really about tools. And what today is happening in the marketing space is a lot of marketeers are getting overwhelmed by the tools and technology as opposed to keeping the customer at heart. So that's another assertion I want to make, that ultimately for us to be successful as marketeers, we've got to put customer at the heart of this transformation and do what is right for him or her. The third, which I think is very interesting for people who come from B2B marketing, is suddenly now B2B marketing has got an oomph. It's got that, the creativity, the spark, which traditionally was not possible. Because B2B marketing was considered very boring and very mundane. And nobody ever as a marketer would want to do B2B marketing. Today, thanks to social and mobile platforms, you can actually do very, very consumerist marketing on B2B space, which I think is great for marketeers to create, explore, and obviously innovate as they go through their journey. Now, I think Mr. Roy said content is the king. I actually would say content is not just the king, but the queen and the knight. Because what really matters when you have an attention span of 8 seconds is really the content. If your content does not really attract the customer, in the first 8 seconds, you're dead, you're finished, right? So clearly that puts a lot of onus on storytelling. And if your brands don't speak the story, and the right kind of story, with the right kind of attributes, you're not going to stick in the customer's mind, right? There is a popular saying, and I'm going to just use that as a cliche. Today, brands are not about what you tell the customer who you are. It's actually what customers tell customers what they think you are. And therefore, it's extremely critical to have the right content, the right story, presented in the right format to make sense to customers. The other assertion that I'll make is that marketing, which used to be predominantly art, which means if you were to go hire marketeers, I'm sure people who've been in the industry for 10, 15 years would agree, Historically, when you hire marketeers, 80% of them would be very, very art-centric, right? Clearly, they have creative spark, very innovative, highly passionate. What used to be missing was science, right? And what's happening now, thanks to social media, is that there's real-time exchange of information, which means that marketing can be at the heart of a business transformation, not just a marketing transformation. Because you get access to customer data, you get access to customer information faster than even your business would do, and therefore puts you at the fog light of running businesses. You know, Mr. Roy spoke about the fact that going forward it's all going to be digital, video. I tend to disagree there a little bit. I still think there is an opportunity for all forms of media to coexist. And I'll draw a little bit of parallel, and we were speaking just before we came into this room about the age when TVs came in. And when TVs came in, everybody thought print was going to be dead, right? Everybody thought print was going to be dead. Did it happen? No. Print is even more relevant today compared to what it used to be before. So clearly, there is a space for all media to coexist. It's just the interoperability between media is dramatically shifting. People constantly switch between social to mobile to print to any form of offline, and therefore their interactions is now much more complex. What used to be very linear is very, very matrix today, making the job of marketeer even more difficult than what it used to be. The journey of a customer right from explore to buy has changed. It's no longer a sequential set of steps that leads to an outcome. Customers constantly shift between various stages. So they could be at, let's say, evaluate, and they could suddenly go back to explore and go through the process again. And therefore, it's a continuum, and it's a circle, and it's very hard to predict where the customer is. But that's where the beauty of marketing lies, and that's where the science of marketing lies to make it that much more effective. And finally, I'll say this. I think what all this does is another important element that we all marketers need to be careful about, which is the sentiment of respecting the individual and his privacy. At times, what happens when you look at social media and mobile marketing, because it's so targeted, it's so real time, and it's so specific to the customer, is that you could actually cross the line of what is ethical and what is the privacy of a customer. And we've got to start respecting that privacy, right? So it's up to the marketeer, and there's no clear rules or clear lines that are drawn of what is right and what is wrong, because customers today are more than willing to share private information on social media than what they used to do before. So, clearly the lines are being redrawn, but it's important for marketeers to respect that line and ensure that that's not crossed at any point in time. So I think it's a fantastic transformation. It's a transformation that's not just impacting marketeers, it's impacting customers because they have access to more information than what they used to. It's impacting businesses because you now get insights ahead of the curve, and therefore companies that are able to build data, analytics, insights, and therefore actions are able to survive and even transform or grow. And it's great for the customer themselves, right? Like I said, because there's plethora of opportunities and choices. So, great opportunity. I think it's something that's here to stay. And successful companies are the ones that will embrace this faster, to his point, than others who don't. So, that would be my summary.
Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal. And I completely agree with your point that it has to be an integrated marketing communication. It's not that social, mobile, digital, they are in silos. It has to be integrated. And I like the idea that content is the queen, because that's what will bring the customer, who is the king, attracted towards the content. So, Raki, I don't know whether we have time for any questions. Okay, we have? Okay, good. So, if there are any questions, I throw it open to the house. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to take. No questions? So let me start. Okay. Yes, there is one question. Yeah.
Thank you. Hello. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay, I'm audible. Good evening. Very interesting session from all you wonderful people. While we were talking a lot about social media and mobile and social revolution, My question to all of you put together is, the situation of the internet today in India is not really up to the mark, wherein the kind of stats and figures that have been thrown by most of you all in your presentations or the discussions. So, I mean, together, what's the way forward when you look at the cost of, utilizing the internet today, or maybe ensuring that, all of you speak to the government and figure out how you can make at least about maybe 1 or 2 Mbps of internet on smartphones so that a lot of media could be, utilized by smartphone users. Any thoughts on that?
Anybody? The question is that how do we, or what is the view on how to bring down the internet cost in India? Anybody?
So, one stat that really baffles me is, I think a couple of months ago, we became the second largest internet penetrated country after China. So I think we've beaten the US, number one. Number two, the other stat says that we got 1 billion subscribers, and we're going to have close to 300 million smartphones which are internet enabled. And I think that number is going to just increase, because I don't think anybody now buying a non-smartphone, whatever. So that'll be, so China is today at 500 million smartphones. We are very close at 300 million, which is a big number, already broken the US number. So pretty much number 2 in terms of access. The other interesting fact is the first time access to internet now happens on mobile. So nobody now typically gets a cable at home, there's a router, a modem, and all that stuff. So very few people. So if you see the rural expansion or the larger rollouts of mobile is happening, that is really getting people onto the internet much faster than any other mode of access devices. So keeping that in mind, obviously with tariffs in India being the lowest in terms of be it data or voice, I think we are at a stage or rather cusp of serious explosion in terms of how internet is going to get consumed and for what. So prices will only go southwards, number one. Two, it's now a question of how do we make sure that we deliver content which is relevant, which is vernacular, which is consumed at a point in time that they are able to interact and therefore use it. So all this put together, I think India will have I think a serious boom in business models and ways of content being delivered. I think what we're probably seeing now in terms of social interactions are probably the tip of the iceberg. There are many, many more ways that will come up as we go. So I think I'm very bullish about this, and prices will come down. The technology is only getting the prices down, so there is no way I mean, today, for example, the 4Gs are far more cheaper than anywhere in the world. I don't think we use anything that we want to do, you first pick up the phone and figure out whether you want to go someplace, you have to buy something, or you want to eat somewhere. So I think the phone typically helps you do that. So I think that's changing a lot of behavior otherwise in terms of way we interact with this as well. So what else wants to add?
Yeah, and I think with initiatives like smart cities and all, it is something that will become a basic facility. But yes, I mean, it will take some time probably, but I think the lag between the Western countries and India is closing down in this space. Yeah. Any other question?
I'll just add on
to
what Jaggi said. So one obviously talked about the footprint. Okay, he talked about the devices and the way it's increasing. The other is the accessibility. That's what the point is. Okay. So obviously a lot of things are being done. So one is of the government level, the smart cities that are coming in. That's obviously will take into care the infrastructure, the ability of Wi-Fi zones. Also, I was on some seminar and I was hearing Intel talking out. So they also have a mandate of setting up Wi-Fi free zones. So basically, all across the country, it's how you provide the accessibility to people. So you'll have smartphones, you have 30-40% of smartphones which people can at a lower price, we talked about. But whether accessibility is the point, and second is the broadband penetration at the villages, the town B, town C. Okay, that's another region and people are working on it. It will take time. India is a very fast country. You can't expect miracles overnight. But I think work is being done, to answer your question.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Sorry, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So my question is to Mr. Roy. So in your presentation, you said that we are seeing Uber, who does not own any physical assets, or Alibaba, who does not again own any assets. Similarly, other examples. So what is this revolution that has come into being, like where the middleman, or let's say the person or the website connecting the two, so the service provider and the service acceptor, what has led to this revolution is my question.
See, what has happened is actually the emergence of platforms. Okay, so these platforms are created. So the aggregators are coming in, they don't own anything, but they're creating a platform by you connect the two ends together. So, that's one of the things in innovation that's coming in is the emergence of platforms. So as you move across say the IT space that happens, earlier it was, TM, the basically contract, the TNM, then the outward word pricing. And now today's world is the emergence of platform-based solutions. And all the examples that we talked about are all platform-based. So where you made the two ends connect, you become the aggregator. You don't have to invest in anything. So in today's age also, if you look at technology, etc., the whole world is moving from a CapEx to OpEx model. Okay? So the question of investment, putting in money early, it's all gone. It's all consumption based, all based on how you set up a platform and how you connect the two ends together and be the middleman. So that's the gameplay, and that's how it's revolutionizing the entire landscape.
Yeah, there's a question at the back.
Yeah, am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, you are.
Considering the fact that the mobile and this social media revolution is now happening, the data pattern that is collected by virtue of these has also become quite complex in nature. Now, analyzing those data and taking meaningful decisions out of that, how challenging this is and how relevant this is?
I think it's a very valid point. And just to articulate the challenge, I think there are two forms of challenge. One is, we've historically been used to analyzing structured data. We are very good at it, right? And we've got enough and more statistical, analytical models, big data applications that can solve for structured data. I think the first challenge that we're facing today is this voluminous unstructured data that's coming our way through social media. And the further complexity there is, the insight lies in that unstructured data, right? So structured data is available and anybody can process it, but the real intelligence, the real smartness is in that unstructured data. So that's the first complexity. The second complexity is the intensity or the velocity of this data has dramatically scaled over time. He talked about the number of video views, the number of websites being created. It just adds to the velocity of data, and therefore no infrastructure is capable enough at any point in time to be able to consume all of that, analyze, and provide insight. So those would be the two problem statements if I were to articulate what you just said. I think what's happening right now is, one, social media listening, to what Mr. Basu said, is becoming a huge opportunity, because what social media listening does is it breaks down this unstructured data into chunks or bytes of insights that's consumable. So large companies are investing, So large companies are investing in their own in-house social media listening, sites and platforms that will allow them to chunk out these unstructured data into what is more meaningful to be consumed, number one. Number two is the capabilities of analytics and applications are dramatically changing. I don't know if you would know, but 80% of unstructured data analytic expertise is based in India today. Not outside of India, not in China, not in the US, not in the Silicon Valley, but actually in India. And out of the 80%, 60% is in Bangalore. So the capability of really using these or delving into these insights and coming up with perspectives is actually here, right, in this country. And I think that evolution, right, the number of shops that are actually doing this today is exponentially growing. I think the last stat that I read from NASSCOM was about 200% growth in the number of startups that are focusing on big data analytics, particularly on unstructured data, right? So I think what's happening right now is that that issue is understood. I think a lot of the companies are investing a lot of resources, time, money into that space. A lot of applications are being built outside. A lot of modeling work is going on. And I think that's where, that's where the, opportunity is, in future. Now, one underlying element here is a lot of these unstructured data is very hard to predict, right? I'll give you an example. You go to social media today, and that's the pitfall of social listening. Let's say there is a comment that says, this car is useless, right? Let's say there's a comment. And let's say the comments below that is positive smiley. Now, what does that positive smiley mean in the context of someone saying this car is useless? It's actually a negative comment, right? But when you start looking at unstructured data, it will treat that smiley as a positive sentiment, right? So, the challenge with unstructured data in itself is the fact that it's very hard to weed out emotions. And therefore, the insights may be skewed depending on how you interpret emotions. So, there is a structure element to it, data element to it, but there's also this emotional element to it that we need to weed out to really interpret what the meaningful insight is out of that data. So, those would be the challenges and the opportunities if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'll just add on to what Sudarshan said. Okay, just one point. So it's covered in details. See, IT employees profile is changing. Okay, gone are the days when obviously Indian IT used to boast of programmers, coders. Okay, now you have automation tools that takes care of those. One of the low-hanging fruits IT industry used to reap on earlier was the testing phase. Okay. Now you have automation that takes care of it. You don't need manual intervention out there. So on one side, you're losing profiles like that. The other side, to answer your question, you need data scientists. You need guys, analytics, who does it. Huge demand. We are still grappling with it. The demand-supply gap is pretty big. But that's how the IT profile is changing. So those type of jobs are going to go away. The most high-end data scientists, etc., those are going to be in demand as we move forward.
Okay, so I'm sure there are many more questions, but in the interest of time, we'll close the panel discussion here. If you have any more questions, you can always interact with the panelists outside. Sorry, I think in the interest of time, we have to close it. I'm very sorry. Okay, so you can always talk to the panelists. Yeah? Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure.
It's an extension of the last question answer. Actually, a lot of research are going on during the evaluation of the pattern evaluation conversion, that how much data unstructured data. A lot of research are going on. My question is, how do you adopt the model? Because suppose one tool you have, but side by side, a lot of research are going on. They all are saying that my model is good, I am getting better result from the, how you people are adopting the new research work or the new model to predict anything, maybe conversion, maybe pattern of user. How do you choose the new model in the analysis of the market?
See, as far as predictive analytics is concerned, because it's an emerging subject, yes, there are many models which are correct, there are many models which are evolving. Okay. So you obviously have to see which models work now, and probably in some cases you even have to experiment. So I don't think today there is a very clear answer that okay, this model is working and this model is not working. But this is because it's evolving science. You have to probably keep experimenting and reach to a point where it is more accurate. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. Okay, and we'll close here, and I'll hand it over to.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and our speakers, for this very interesting and interactive session. I would like to request Mr. Didi Prakash, the Managing Director and CEO, ABB Private Limited, and Chairman Infocomm, to kindly come forward and present mementos to our Chairperson and speakers for this very interesting session. Thank you, Mr. Sudarshan Rajagopalan. Thank you for your interesting outputs. Thank you, Mr. Arijit Basu. We thank our Chairperson and Speaker, Mr. Atanu Ghosh. Thank you, Mr. A.L. Jagannath. And thank you very much, Mr. Prasenjit Roy. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sure there are a lot of questions that our delegates will have with the chairperson and the speakers. You can ask them off stage or maybe get their emails and also ask your questions over email.